your district.
I'll call this meeting to order this December 7th, 2017. Madam Secretary, could we please have roll call?
Commissioner Norberg?
Here.
Commissioner Colton?
Here.
Commissioner Keating?
Here.
Chair Chapman?
Here.
Vice Chair Rosenbaum?
Here.
Commissioner Smith?
Here.
Commissioner Bash?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Could you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Director Pfister, do we have any current events or reports tonight?
None at this time, Chair.
Okay, thank you. This time we have a call to the public that anyone that would like to speak on any item that is on the agenda, there is a public form out in the lobby. If you'd please fill that out and provide that to our secretary, we'd appreciate it. And for those people in the audience that would like to address any issue that is not on the agenda, this would be the time to do so. Do we see anybody? Seeing none, then we'll move on to our first agenda item is a consideration action to approve the November 2nd, 2017 Planning and Zoning Commission minutes. Do we have any discussion? Seeing none, then I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. No further discussion, then please vote. Ooh.
Motion passes 7 votes in favor.
Thank you. We'll move on to our first item here, calling for public hearings. Item number 2 is a consideration action on a conditional use permit to allow for a new residential storage mini warehouse in the portion of the parcel 13 of the West Point Town Center, PAD, generally located on the north of Greenway Road and east of Litchfield Road. And we have presenter Shirley. Nice to see you.
Good evening, Commissioners. Okay, tonight I will be presenting the conditional use permit for the Greenway self-storage. The location of the site is on north of Greenway Road and east of Litchfield Road. This site is currently zoned PAD commercial land use. To the east is PAD designated for a school. To the north is PAD single family. To the west is PAD commercial. And to the south is low density residential. The subject site will be accessed from a couple of shared driveways off of Greenway Road and Litchfield Road. These driveways will lead to the entrance of the subject site, which is located on the west side of the property. The applicant is proposing public parking on the south side of the property and additional parking and loading spaces on the east and west side of the building. On-site vehicles will enter through the security gates on the far east side of the property, circulating counterclockwise around the building to exit through the security gate on the west side of the property. The applicant will also propose a pedestrian connection to connect through the existing sidewalk on Greenway Road and to the future development on the west side. Highlighted is the pedestrian accessible route. The Greenway self-storage will propose 2 buildings. First, Building A will be a 2-story building, and it will have approximately 615 units. The first floor will be non-climate controlled, while the second floor is climate controlled. Also, located in the front will be the office managed by 2 employees at a time from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. The second building, Building B, will be located on the north side of the property. This building will only be a single-story building that will not be climate controlled and has 16 units. Surrounding the building will be an 8-foot masonry wall. Additional to the PAD requirements, Title 17 mentions that a mini warehouse facility must comply with the specific development standards, such as the minimum of 1 acre, minimum of 6 feet high masonry wall, the specific setbacks, building height, and a minimum of 15% landscaping. All these conditions for this use has been met by the applicant. Here is the landscape plan showing the 15% of landscaping on this property. Here are the elevations for Building A. The first image on top is the south elevation, which will be viewed from Greenway Road. Here are the elevations for Building B. The north elevation will be viewed from the open space tract from Ocotillo. The applicant has met all the requirements of the PAD and has enhanced the elevations to not portray the traditional mini warehouse facilities. There was a citizen outreach meeting on October 11th. The two concerns that came up was the neon green doors and the existing driveway dip on Greenway Road. Staff recommends a subject to approve stipulations A and C through C. There were minor comments on note revisions on the site plan. This ends my presentation, and I would also point out that the applicant is here today to answer any other questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we get started, we have a public hearing. I'd like to open that public hearing at this time. Is there anyone that is in our audience here that would like to speak on this issue? Okay, seeing none, then I'll close the public hearing and we'll move on to our discussion. And why don't we start with Commissioner Bash?
No comments at this time.
Commissioner Smith.
The only question I have is the block fence going to be painted? I didn't see any color.
No, it will be a gray color, sir.
It'll be a gray concrete type color?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Rosenbaum.
No questions.
Commissioner Keating.
I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Commissioner Coldham.
I have one comment. I do appreciate for whoever provided the neighborhood outreach information. This is very beneficial and very helpful to understand where the community is coming from for attendees who came to the event. So I just say thank you to whoever was the provider of that information.
Thank you. Commissioner Norbert.
No comments, thank you.
And I have no comment. Any further comments or discussions from anyone? And I'd entertain a motion.
I move to approve the conditional use permit to allow for a new residential storage mini warehouse in a portion of parcel 13 of the West Point Town Center PAD, generally located north of Greenway Road and east of Litchfield Road, subject to stipulations A through C as listed in the staff report.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, then please vote.
Motion passed, 7 votes in favor.
Thank you. Moving on to item number 3 is a consideration and action on a conditional use permit to allow for a new vehicle service major repair facility in the portion of Lot 6B of the Bell and Dysart Commercial Center, generally located north of Bell Road and east of Dysart Road. And we have presenter Sergio Angulo.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. Tonight I'll be presenting to you the conditional use permit application for Champs Family Auto. Just a little background on the business. It's an existing business here in the city of Surprise. They're looking to expand their services. They currently are located just north of the subject site in the Foxfire area. So this would be an expansion to their existing business and allow them to grow here in the city of Surprise. So they're highlighting in red is the subject site. It's located north of Bell Road, east of Dysart Road, just north of the existing Cobalt rehabilitation facility. The property is zoned regional commercial, which allows for the proposed use with an approval of a conditional use permit. Surrounding the site, you have the same regional commercial zoning districts. Here's a proposed site plan. I do want to mention that the northern part of the site plan here is for future development as a separate phase. We do ask that when applicants come in with bigger sites, they provide us at least a conceptual plan for those other areas to ensure that this site and future sites have sufficient and appropriate accesses. With that said, we will be focusing on the south part of the site plan here. Now, the site will be accessed off of an existing shared driveway, which is currently what Cobalt uses right now, off of Dysart Road, and also an existing shared access point with Cobalt to the south. Now, once the future development to the north comes in, then they will provide an additional access point off of Dysart Road, which will serve this site as well. The applicant's proposing a pedestrian path towards the future development to the north and to the existing sidewalk on Dysart Road. And I do want to mention that will be provided with this phase of development. Public parking will be provided on the west side of the building, and additional parking for the vehicles being serviced will be provided on the rear side of the property, and these will be screened with a masonry wall. The back side of the property will be gated for service areas through security gates located on the north side and on the east side of the property. Now, in addition to the regular requirements by the SUDC, this type of use requires additional development standards, such as making sure that all the works is being done indoors, that the base doors of the garage do not face public right-of-way, making sure that all vehicle parts and equipment are either placed indoors or screened from public view. No manufacturing or dismantling of vehicles, and also making sure that all the disabled vehicles or vehicles that are being serviced are screened. The applicant has met these requirements with their application. On site, the applicant proposes to include street landscape along Bell Road, and also additional landscaping on site to help screen the trash enclosures, and these all meet the requirements of the SUDC. Now, in your staff report, there are stipulations B and C, which pretty much just mentioned that the applicant will be providing a screen wall along Dysart Road to help screen those parking spaces that would be along that side of the street. These are the proposed elevations. As you can see, the applicant has included a similar stone style as what the development to the south has provided. And the metal sheeting on the building is similar to what the behavioral health facility to the west is providing on their site as well. This is the west elevation, which will be viewed by the public along Dysart Road. And here are the rear side and the north side elevations. The CUP required an outreach meeting. The applicant did hold one on October 30th in their existing site. There was a couple members of the public that showed up in support of this project. They all thought that it was good for the city for them to expand their business and stay within the city of Surprise. They also did encourage the applicant to hire local and to continue being an active member of the community. Now, additional to that, staff received a phone call from a resident in Sun City West. They did mention a concern with potential lighting being viewed from those residences to the east. The applicant submitted a photometric study which showed that all of the lighting that they will be producing will be contained within their site. And also as part of the SUDC requirements, all lighting has to be fully cut off so that it all points downward and it doesn't spill out to other properties. Now, this CUP application is in conjunction with a final plat application as well, which is currently being reviewed and will be presented to City Council at a later date. And that is part of Stipulation A. Other than that, staff's recommendation is of approval, subject to the stipulations as listed in the staff report. At this time, I'll take any questions.
Okay, thank you. This does call again for a public hearing. I'd like to open that public hearing for anyone that would like to speak on this issue. Madam Secretary, do we have anyone? Not? Okay, then I'll close the public hearing and we'll start this discussion with Commissioner Norbert.
No questions, thank you.
Commissioner Colton.
No questions or comments. Thank you.
Commissioner Keating.
I don't have any questions. I'm just happy to see that business is good and you're expanding. I think it's a great asset to that area, and it's going to blend in really well and enhance the look of that area. So, great job.
Vice Chair Rosenbaum.
No comments at this time.
Commissioner Smith.
No comments.
Commissioner Bash.
No comments.
I have one comment. Could you go through the access points and connectivity to not just the current plan there, but to see that the lots that are on the east side of this property have access, or will they have access?
Mr. Chair, Commissioners. So off of Dysart Road, there's currently one existing driveway, which serve as an access for this site. Also, there is a shared access easement with the property to the south. Now, you're talking about the properties to
the east.
The east.
No, we have to go back.
Sorry.
If you would, please, there.
Okay. There is an existing access driveway on Bell Road, which will serve as the access point for that future development on the east. There's also an existing shared access easement through the property, which they would also connect through the Cobalt site and through this specific site. And if I just could go back to the site plan and show you on the east side, right there. That would be part of the phase 2 development.
Okay, so there would be at least 2 access points for that one piece of property then?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right, thank you. I have no other questions. Are there any other questions from the commission? And seeing none, then I'd entertain a motion.
I move to approve the conditional use permit to allow for the new vehicle service major repair facility in a portion of Lot 6B of the Bell and Dysart Commerce Center, generally located north of Bell Road and east of Dysart Road, subject to stipulations A through E as listed in the staff report.
Second.
So moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote.
Motion passes 7 votes in favor.
Thank you. Move on to item number 4 is the consideration and action regarding a preliminary plat for a project known as 175th and Sweetwater, generally located at the southeast corner of 175th Avenue and Sweetwater Avenue. We have Mr. Planner Kuvis.
Good evening, Chairman, Commissioners. Yes, the next case before you is the preliminary plat for 175th and Sweetwater. This project is, if you'll recall, you've seen this land before. This was part of the one of the ancillary pieces next to the Magnolia piece. You recently saw the zone change for this piece. So all we're dealing with today is the actual preliminary plat, which follows the zone change that you saw a few months ago. The property is located on the southeast corner of 175th and Sweetwater, and in an area that was part of a recent annexation. Excuse me. You'll recall the original zone change. It kind of anticipated an alley-loaded sort of product, and with the revised zone change, they came back in with a standard lotting concept, and the preliminary plat actually reflects this exact configuration. So we've got 44 lots on 10 acres. The zoning would allow 5 dwelling units per acre. They're at 4.4. It's a pretty simple layout in terms of access and so forth. And then it'd be nicely well landscaped around the perimeter and throughout the interior. Then there's also there's a theme wall, which you've seen before, and then a similar. I don't have a color image of this, but then a decorative view wall, which has actually a very ornate sort of wrought iron. It's not just your standard picket sort of thing. It's actually pretty nice. And then the wall plan that shows where these various walls go. So the solid wall around the perimeter, view fencing along the open space, and then a builder wall along the outside edge next to the school and the adjacent property to the east. They show a location for a entry monument. We don't have details on the entry monument at this time, but they'll come back at a later time, and it'll just meet whatever the requirements are in the zoning. You probably won't even see the entry monument at all through this venue. Fairly simple. Our approval is our recommendation is for approval, subject to stipulations A through D, as outlined in your staff report, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. This does call for, once again, a public hearing. I'd like to open that public hearing. Is there anyone that we have that has made a request? Seeing none, is there anyone out there that has anything comments? Okay, noting that, we'll close the public hearing, and we'll start a discussion with Commissioner Keating.
Thank you. I don't have any questions.
Vice Chair Rosenbaum.
No questions.
We have Commissioner Smith.
No questions.
Commissioner Coldham.
I do have one question. I'm just curious. Will the title of this development, when the signage is determined, is it going to be titled 175th and Sweetwater, or is there an official name that the development might be called?
Chairman, Commissioners, the plat will be known probably as 175th and Sweetwater, but the marketing name will probably be something much nicer.
Excellent. And like you had mentioned in the introduction, I'm really glad to see this project back. It's a great addition to that region of District 3. So very glad to see it back. Thank you.
Commissioner Bash.
No questions.
Commissioner Norbert.
Yes, I'm also glad to see this back as well. I do have A question, if you could just go over, because we have seen this before and we have discussed it before, but can you go over for the benefit of those who might be new to this, maybe watching or people moving in, can you discuss the traffic that we're going to be having in that area, and if there has been any solutions with the parking with the school that's there, because I know that there are issues with parking.
Chairman, Commissioner, as far as the parking, I know that, you know, that school is actually still in unincorporated Maricopa County. I don't, maybe Eric, you better.
Chair, Commissioner Norberg, I know with the school expansion, I believe they're adding an additional 373 or 350 parking stalls to that site. Along with the development of that school, they're actually doing some improvements along 175th Avenue adjacent to the development. We've actually had quite a few discussions about that roadway. That roadway is classified as a collector. It's kind of a modified collector with the way that the right-of-way width and those kinds of things in the area, and to facilitate the necessary traffic. There's going to be left-hand, right-hand turn lanes, as well as there's bike lanes associated with it. So one of the deviations from that is that the travel lanes, because of the need for a median to help control access into the site, have gotten a little bit skinnier. And it's well within the engineering standards that are put out forth nationwide. There'll be 10-foot lanes. One of the reasons to do that is for the median to help control left hand in and right hand out and those kinds of things, as well as it's being utilized as traffic calming to help. You know, when you have smaller lanes, it typically causes people to slow down a little bit. So those items are coming with the school. Adjacent to this development, they'll finish off some of the improvements associated with the development and a portion of Sweetwater. We're also, and I think Rob can speak a little bit more to this, there's a couple other projects that are coming in piecemeal now that are north of this site that we're working with as well to help facilitate that collector roadway so that it carries through the whole length.
Great. Thank you so much. That was my only question.
Yes, I have one question. Now that we've separated this from a holistic number of different property owners consolidating came to us before, now we have individuals apparently that are applying. What about the trail system and connectivity there with and how this property will align with the trail system?
You know, Mr. Chairman, as Eric mentioned, we have quite a few other projects that are kind of coming in. I wish I had a better map for you. And I don't. I wish I did. But we have some projects coming in. One for this area up on the top, another one that kind of crosses through here. We're doing a concept review for this area to the south and east, and the southwest and the east side. And our intent is to make sure that all those trail connections all kind of line up. Now, this particular project, there really there isn't so much. It's only a 10-acre piece, so there really isn't a trail connection for this 10-acre piece. But the larger area we are working with.
The larger area, there will be some connectivity for this piece of property.
Well, yes, and like I say, there's not a trail that punches through here.
Right.
But the larger, the old Magnolia piece, even though it's coming through fragmented, we're working with them to make sure that those connections occur.
All right, I have no other questions. Commissioners, any further questions? If not, then I'd entertain a motion.
I move to recommend approval to the mayor and city council a preliminary plat for the project known as 175th and Sweetwater, generally located at the southeast corner of 175th Avenue and Sweetwater Avenue, subject to stipulations A through D as listed in the staff report.
Second.
It's been moved in and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote.
Motion passes 7 votes in favor.
Thank you. Our next item, number 5, is a Consideration action on recommending approval to the mayor and city council, approving a zone text amendment for wireless facility. My understanding, if you could assist me here, Mr. Wingard, is that the applicant has requested a continuance?
Well,
Or the city?
the applicant is the city. And yes, this is going to be continued until the 21st.
Well, I guess
Yes.
sure, it's both. In order to do that, I would need a motion.
I move to table until December 21st, 2017, Planning and Zoning Commission.
Chair, Vice Chair, can you, sorry to interrupt. Could you change your motion to continue as opposed to table, please?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
It's okay. It's my.
I will amend that. I move to continue until December 21st, 2017, Planning and Zoning Commission.
And I still second it.
Any further discussion from the commission? Seeing none, then please vote.
Motion passes 7 votes in favor.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to item number 6 is the consideration action approving a rezone of the Rio Rancho Estates residential development generally located 1 mile west of intersections of West Grand Avenue and West Happy Valley Road from medium density residential PAD R-2 PAD to low density, and low density residential PAD R1-5 PAD to medium density residential RM or RM-6 PUD and R-9 PUD and low density residential RL1 to PUD. Wow, impressive. Okay. With that, we have presenter Hunter Wingard. Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. Tonight, I bring before you Rio Rancho rezone. This is located in the north part of the city, west of Grand Avenue, along Happy Valley Road. And as you can see in the outline, the larger outline, this was part of a bigger PAD that had commercial and commercial over here and a little bit of industrial for a plant that they were considering at one time. What is being done to now is just the residential portion is being pulled out of that PAD and put into a PUD overlay. The surrounding zoning to the west of the property is state trust land. To the north is community commercial. To the east is C2 PAD commercial, and then the surrounding southern tip is surrounded by rural residential. Just a brief history, this did come in originally in 2001, annexation and the PAD. In 2005, a PAD amendment was introduced and a preliminary plat for north and south was approved. And then in 2006 and 2007, a couple plats were approved, and one of them was actually recorded, which that would be replaced with what we're having today. Now, the purpose of this rezone is to rezone the 188 acres of residential PAD, introduce the 4 types of residential lot types they're using, modify and identify setbacks for residential. And when I say modify, it's there is no, for medium density in that classification, there is no setbacks, and we're setting up some for this project. And then modification of block length requirements and of the open space. What you see before you is the original PAD map, very similar to what we're showing now. As I spoke about before, there's this parcel over here where they imagined a treatment plant, and in the red are commercial. This is, again, the area along Happy Valley Road. And the zoning, like in that very long sentence the chairman stated, this is going to PUD RM6, RM9, and RL5, which correspond to our zoning districts currently. Just give you an idea where these the RM6 is going in a couple different areas, giving this a mixed development. The PUD RM9, which is the most dense on here, are conventional 48-foot wide lots. And then the lower residential up in the upper corner, which these will be larger lots. 188 acres, 669 units. And just to give you an idea, previously this was almost 5 dwelling units per acre, and it's going down to 3.5. And the dwelling units originally were 906 down to 669. And you can see where some of this high density, medium density was in the original PAD, where they were looking at things such as Z-lots, such as cluster type developments, 6-packs, that sort of thing. And as you know, that a lot of those types of products did not go over well within the city. Again, townhouses, other items like that. So what they're proposing are the low density residential are going to be 63 feet wide. Medium density will range from 48 to 58 feet. And when I talked about the setbacks, and as you saw those examples of the medium density product, there are so many different, as you can see in the existing code, it's to be determined. So these are set up to be 5 and 13. The only change that is happening other than the to be determined is the side setbacks total are 13, which would be 5 and 8, as opposed to the 15, which would have been 5 and 10, and a 35-foot height limit, which is matching the medium density residential product that is going in. The open space is different. You can see some of the remnants of the original design, but this, I would like to point out that this is trails throughout, and this trail right over here, back in 2006 or 7, the drainage facility was installed along the northern eastern edge, which has turned out to be an excellent place for recreation. And so with that, they're putting this trail in. And this is a slide from the Parks and Trails Master Plan. You can see Rio Rancho right in here, and it's right along one of the regional trails. So I'm going to back up one. And so this would be coming just right up through here. And the applicant has actually offered to, once we get to that point, to have this as part of the trail in the future, so we can start to piece those pieces together as we go northward. We did have a citizen review meeting on July 12th. Several residents came in. Many were curious about what was going on. We had a single resident that was concerned about the traffic along Happy Valley, as it's 2-lane now, and with being an arterial is going to be much bigger. There were no objections from reviewing agencies, and staff does recommend approval. With that, I can answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. This does call for a public hearing. I'm open to the public hearing. Is there anyone that would like to speak? Is there anyone out there like, yes, there is a gentleman. Would you please come forward and state your name for us?
Yes, sir. My name is Pete Peterson. I also live down on Happy Valley Road. I'm one of the last residents out there. Being this is my first time seeing this and seeing the signs up for quite some time. We've been out of state for 3 years. Well, I haven't heard what's happening with this. I would like to know what kind of access and stuff, being that all the construction that's going to be going on. I do know that they also have a water problem along that road. There's been almost once a year having to dig that road back up again. What are is City of Surprise going to do for this development going in with this water rights and stuff? You're going to have more water going through here with old pipes. Has there been anything looked
Maybe-
into that?
Yeah. With that, maybe we can, do we have any quick answers that we might have, Mr. Wingard?
Yes, the Rio Rancho facility is planning to have their own water campus that will supply this facility and also connect into the Beardsley water system.
Okay, I'm not sure if that answers your
Basically, I'm
question.
trying to find out how much, because if they're going to have to dig up the road and everything else, what kind of access are we going to have when you start getting into construction and stuff? Is it going to interfere with us being able to get in and out of there? We're going to have to go south or north to be able to get to my site. I'm at 197th and Happy Valley.
Mr. Chair, at this point, with the zoning, that has not been, how the staging of the construction hasn't been settled as of yet. But I'm sure that this is not going to be left anybody back in, without a way out on here.
So there's going to be access, is what we're saying then. Yeah, it might be that maybe you can contact the county or the developer to get more information. I know they had a public meeting to discuss the very issues that you're speaking of, and they might be more helpful to
They'll
know.
be out probably within this week for my site. We're installing solar power out there on the property. So I'll talk to them at that time.
Yeah. All right.
And see if any one of the inspectors could tell me anything about it. Otherwise, yes, I'm glad to see this is going in. It'll help my property for the future. Glad to see this is cleaning the area up a little bit more. Maybe it'll help some of the dumping that's going on out there.
Yeah. Well, thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
All right. Any further comments from the public? Seeing none, then I'll close the public hearing and move on to our commissioners. Commissioner Bash, do you have any?
The only thing I can say is it looks like it's a much more marketable product than what was there previously. And with that, I have no further questions.
Thank you. Commissioner Norbert.
No questions, thank you.
Commissioner Coldham.
Yeah, a couple comments. First, beautiful development. Love the enhancements that come to this region. One of the challenges that we have in our city is always finding housing that really fits the needs of residents. And given the big boom economically and with housing in the earlier 2000s, having choices and options available for residents of multiple densities, not just single family residents, it's a good thing. Next, appreciate the public input. Certainly hope that those questions can be answered. And then finally, the modification to the lots, I think it's really beneficial. I think there'll be much more of an interest in this area as a result of it. Thank you.
Commissioner Smith.
I have no questions.
Commissioner Keating.
No questions.
Vice Chair Rosenbaum.
Ingress on Happy Valley from Grand Avenue, is that going to be, it's a 2-lane now?
Through the chair, Commissioner, this is currently a 2-lane, and this is going to be upgraded to a minor arterial. But the distance of the property frontage.
So it's going to be 2 lanes off of 60, and then we'll go to, let's say, a 4-lane.
You're correct.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Yes, I just have just to follow up on the question that Vice Chair Rosenbaum stated, that access off of Grand Avenue, now we're going to have quite a few homes in here. There's a left turn deceleration lane to get into this property, and will that be enough? Have we studied that in a traffic study?
Mr. Chair, yes. This has had a full traffic impact analysis, and everything has been blessed by our transportation department. And one thing that does change in here, you see a connection to Grand Avenue. That is not going to happen. ADOT is limiting those to the 1-mile roads. And so everything will be going down through Happy
On our
Valley.
screen, we don't have what you're looking at, I think.
right? Happy Valley Road right here. So, and in the first phases, and this is still being discussed as we had a concept review meeting this morning on this, there's going to be initial phase probably of this area right in through here or down here, and you'll have these roads put in surrounding that.
Okay. Are there any other questions from our commission? Seeing none, then I'd entertain a motion.
I move to recommend approval to the mayor and city council a rezone of the Rio Rancho Estates residential development subject to stipulations A through C as listed in staff report.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote.
Motion passes 7 votes in favor.
Thank you. Our next item is a non-public hearing. Item number 7 is a presentation discussion regarding the 2018 Community Development Block Grant Public Service Funding. And we have Keith and Christina to present today. Thanks.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and members of the commission. My name is Seth Dyson, as you know, representing the Human Service Community Vitality Department. What we'd like to do tonight is to seek your direction on our Community Development Block Grant public service portion. Typically, we put out 15% of all public service or all CDBG dollars to nonprofits. And as a director of the department, I'm looking for your direction to see if we can retain some of that into our department for direct service, and I'll explain why. So, a little bit of background before we get to the official ask. As you know, Community Development Block Grant public service dollars come to us as an entitlement community. This current year, we just accepted it at the council meeting this past Tuesday. We received $638,000 directly from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. 15% of that allotment can go again to public services, which this year is $95,000. And public services can be used either in-house or put out to bid to nonprofits who provide services for residents of Surprise. The process timeline, and historically, we put the applications out in this month, December, January, and that's why we're here tonight to seek your direction of how do we put those out. So if we do want to change, you can make that recommendation to us. So that's why we're seeking your direction. But applications will go out to nonprofits or to whoever, or to city departments who want to apply. Public planning and zoning hearing in February. Planning and zoning funding recommendations. As you know, the nonprofits typically come, city staff come and ask you for funding support for particular programs in March. Our CDBG goals, we have to meet national objectives, which is funding low-income areas, funding specific services for youth, seniors, some of the most vulnerable populations in our community. We fund the city's highest priority population, leverage the funding as much as possible. We'll mention that as part of our ask. We fund projects that are already in existence or can be spent in a 12-month time frame. So our ask and what we're considering as staff, and we'd like your direction and ultimately City Council's direction, is to put maybe 50% of the Community Development Block Grant public service dollars out to the nonprofits, while our Human Service Community Vitality Department retains the other portion of that to support our crisis assistance fund that we have that goes directly to Surprise residents, and then a portion of that going to our summer youth employment program, which both of those programs have been funded by CDBG Public Services in the past. And so now why we're asking. First, our crisis assistance fund, we as a city accepted a contract through Maricopa County that receives funding from DES and ultimately the federal government to support utility assistance. And we have the privilege of serving both Surprise and El Mirage residents to try to help them in times of need, also with some eviction prevention. But we've learned very quickly over the year and a half, 2 years that we've had it, that that's the number one need in our community. And we have some stats to back that up, but as we operate a CAP office out of our Surprise Resource Center, which is located in the Heritage District in the original town site, we have an overwhelming need of support for families who are requesting utility assistance. CAP is the Community Action Program. It's a one-time-a-year assistance. So these are families that don't come in and ask for assistance every month. You can apply for once a year, and then if you come back, you're eligible for service. But our hope is that they don't come back if we can wrap around the right services around them, and that's one of our goals. 665 households last year were served through CAP. 2,000 unduplicated people that were served. But between the two communities, just at 100% poverty level based on our census data, we have just under 20,000 people living in poverty between our two communities. El Mirage has a poverty rate of about 19.9%. We have a poverty rate of 9.9%. And that's just at the 100% level. So when you apply for human social services, some of the service areas like food stamps and other places you can go up to 150% poverty level, 200% poverty level. This is just the 100% poverty level at 20,000 people. And you saw that we served about 665 households. That's because the funding we receive from the feds is very limited. We support that program through grant dollars. So both, I have a full-time staff member and a part-time staff member that run that whole program, and they've served all of those folks last year. We had just under 13,000 calls for assistance though. So you can see where we're going with this is we served 665 households. We had 13,000 calls directly to our line last year for assistance. And if you're familiar with the 211 number, if anyone is looking for services in their area like housing, like food, like utility assistance, in the state of Arizona, you can dial 211, and it'll help direct you to get you to the right resource at the right time. And in our zip codes in Surprise, 81,000 requests came last year for some type of service. And the top three requested services were electric, gas, water utilities, then it was food, and rent, and then food. Those are the top 5 requests of the residents of Surprise that call at least 211. So it's not just those calling our office, it's the ones that are calling 211. All applicants that we see are screened for eligibility to assure grant funds are awarded to eligible recipients. The first bullet point up there, ACAA, is short for Arizona Community Action Association. That is a statewide board that receives money from APS, SRP, Southwest Gas, as well as other sources. And we also get some funding from them. And they help advocate for especially low-income households to try to get more assistance. And that's some of their stats. At 5% of the total eligible population, not just of the population of Surprise, of the eligible population receive assistance. Obviously, there's a gap. There's a bigger issue there. And we're grateful that you helped support our application last year. So we have about $20,000 this year to spend with CDBG public service money to support crisis assistance. And our strategy as a department, as we grow out our resource center, is if you come in to seek utility assistance, you're probably needing something else, right? Something in your household or your life is happening that you need some support. So we've done a decent job of pulling in a lot of nonprofit partners to support us in our mission there. And so we have full-time workforce development person there to help folks find jobs or move up in their job, because our goal is not to serve you every year with utility assistance. Our goal is let's serve you, let's stabilize your family. And even if that means getting folks on food stamps and cash assistance and WIC services and all of those things that might stabilize a family, our goal is to get you off of that. So let's stabilize you. Let's figure out what we can do to help you. And let's let's get you out. So that's what our vision is. You know our summer youth employment program much better probably than our crisis assistance fund. We've come to you and asked for support. It started by Christina's vision to do something here with our young adults, especially those low-income adults that might not have work experience. Through her vision, she was able to pull a grant in from the Tohono O'odham Indian Nation to start the program, and then the CDBG dollars in the past have gone to support it and grow the program. We're asking for the same support, basically. Last year, we did not apply for SYAP funds. The year before we did. We received about $13,000. But as a director, and what I'd love to do to help my staff is to always know that there's some sort of fund source that's helping out to continue these programs because we think they're very beneficial. Good return on investment. So last year we had 25 youth that participate in the program all throughout the city. Community development, human service, community vitality, water, PD, fire. Everyone had hosted interns being paid minimum wage, but they also took a whole day and did life skills training, job readiness training. They left with a resume. Hopefully they left with a letter of recommendation. And a quick example, we had a young gentleman working out of the senior center with us last year who struggled at times, showing up on time, being ready to work. We trained him and we coached him, and we found out that he came into the program because he came to our resource center because his mom and him, just the two of them, needed utility assistance. We're able to help them with utility assistance and understanding their situation. We referred them to say, hey, you should apply for this program. They did. He was accepted. He met income requirements, and we learned that some of the issues showing up on time to work was because he didn't have reliable transportation. So he was out of his summer youth employment program paycheck paying for rent for mom, who they just lost their father. And so it was just the two of them. They're trying to figure out what to do. They were small business owners. They lost the business. Now it's just mom, who's actually retired, and a 16-year-old son. And he turned into one of our best performers and was able to successfully complete the program. And we didn't know any of that going into this, of course, but we were able to help him out. He sold his bike just to pay for his mom's utility bills. So now we're trying to work and maybe finding him a bike. And so that's just one example of some of the impact. Now I think he has skills to go and find another job, and that hopefully will set him up for success in the future. Currently in CDBG, we can direct nonprofit organizations to apply for both public service funds, and the city general fund has a community outreach grant program, which currently has $65,000 in it. So as a nonprofit in Surprise or a nonprofit wanting to serve residents of Surprise, they can apply for both CDBG Public Services and Surprise Community Outreach Grants. The Subcommittee on Community Outreach Grants and Partnerships from the City Council has asked us to put a budget request in for the general fund next year to increase the amount of award in that pot from $65,000 to $100,000 made available to nonprofits. I'm not sure what the council will do and whether there's money in the general fund to do that or not, but that's the request of that subcommittee. When we heard that, we started thinking, well, maybe if there's more money in that pot for nonprofits, maybe we can go in and ask for this. But also, we as a staff have a record of applying for the same pot of money. And so you'll see that one of my staff members will come up and ask for money to support the Crisis Assistance Fund or Summer Youth Employment Program right next to or behind a nonprofit that asks for the same money. So this ask of us just holding money back without putting it on the street and allowing us to use it at whatever percentage or whatever allocation you would deem appropriate would prevent us to apply. So they don't think we're competing. I mean, we really kind of are competing because we're holding some money back. But I hope you see where I'm going with that. We're not having to submit an application for you. Yeah, but we can still do that. There's no risk for us. We will be. If you don't want to let us hold money back, we will be applying for money anyway. So just know that it's coming. And finally, this establishes another funding stream to support both programs. That's why I'm here as the director of supporting of a great department. I want to see what I can do to help shore up our funding streams. Thank you for your time this evening. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you. It's nice to hear those heartwarming stories of success.
Yeah.
Why don't we start with Commissioner Bash?
Thank you. Guess I'll turn my mic on. I'm trying to capture these numbers in my mind. How much was currently spent in this cycle for or on the crisis assistance program and the summer youth program?
So through the chair, Commissioner, right now we just received the funds from this past funding recommendation. And so we haven't spent any money yet because it's not even in our budget. We just accepted it for the crisis assistance fund. So we have zero. We're just even putting the policy and the program in place. The CAP program is in place and we're already providing utility assistance.
How much has been provided through the CAP program?
About just over $300,000 just for utility assistance.
Okay. And the summer youth program last year was?
Each year, through the chair, Commissioner, each year the program is around $52,000 in order to fund approximately 20 individuals.
Okay, so it's about 52,000. So basically what you're asking for is $23,946 to go to each one of those programs as solid funding.
Yes, through the chair, Commissioner, it's really up to you. We threw those numbers out there as a starting point. So other cities have held back money just for youth services, just for utility assistance, and they've held it back at like a 9%, or they've held back a solid dollar amount of $15,000, I think. And so depending on the direction we get from you and if you would like us to move forward, then ultimately City Council, those can vary. So I think, we put 25%, we can split it down the middle, but I think the greater need is more towards the crisis assistance fund. So any of those percentages we'd be open to.
And my last would be under did I just hear you say that the community outreach program is questionable funding from year to year based upon the city budget?
So through the chair, Commissioner, it's been, that's a good question. I don't know how long it's been going. I think it's been going 4 or 5 years steady. Right now, it's not questionable. It's always in there. The request this year from that subcommittee is to increase the total of available for nonprofits from 65 to 100,000. So it is, that 65 is set for next year, whether they increase it or not.
Okay, so 65 is solid with potential for 100,000.
That's correct.
Okay, that's all I have at the moment.
Thank you. Commissioner Smith.
I have one question on the summer youth employment program. If it cost us $52,000 last year, and we're proposing to set aside $23,000 with this request, where's the other 30 going to come from?
Through the chair, Commissioner, we do have a budgeted amount on a yearly basis for summer youth employment program. This would be an increase. So the 20 kids that we have every year, we're hoping to increase between 25 and 30.
So you're asking for an increase over
Correct.
what
It
we've
would
had
be
in the
an
past,
increase.
and that's the request for the 23.
Correct.
Okay. And we're asking for, if you split it the 25, you're looking at 23,000 to be added to the utility assistance program, and you're already getting 300. So you're asking for to make it 325. Is that?
Yes, sir. Through the chair.
I mean, we're going to take that out of some of the nonprofits that also provide services. So we're adding 25,000 to utility, but we don't know what we're going to, when we look at the grants for the nonprofits, what are we going to cut? Because we're not going to have enough money to give to them. So without looking at those grants, do we really want to allocate another, what are you looking at, 8% increase? in utility assistance and come up with that revenue stream? Because I don't know what we're going to have to cut out as far as the nonprofit requests. And we have a lot of very valid nonprofit requests. And if we just take out 50%, we're going to be allocating $47,000 versus 90-something thousand last year. So we're going to have some very disappointed nonprofits unless the cities will, that $65,000 will go to offset that, but they're already spending that money currently on something else. So our nonprofits are going to take a $47,000 hit. I don't have any other questions.
Thank you, Commissioner and Vice Chair Rosenbaum.
No questions at this time.
Commissioner Keating.
Yes, thank you. One of the things that stood out to me that I didn't realize was happening, or maybe it's something new, and that was the partnership between Surprise and El Mirage when it comes to assistance for electrical and housing and things like that. Is this something new, or has that been going on for years?
So through the chair, Commissioner, this has been a grant that we've received 2 years ago. So it's been 2 years old. Prior to that, community action services, utility assistance services were available in the area, but it was run by Maricopa County. Maricopa County did an assessment and they broke out more regions and to make it more local. And so organizations could step up and serve. So there are nonprofits that actually do some of the community action programs. And then there are quite a few cities that run. And the contract agreement was to try to serve both. And so it's been working very successfully. But the issue is the top three needs of our residents for any nonprofit or social services are all related to utility assistance. And that's related, of course, to housing and other things that are going on. And so that's why they asked where our intention is not to pull it from any nonprofit, but to try to meet the most requested needs of the area.
I think that's where the big question would come from the general public is, El Mirage, nothing against El Mirage, but they have their own city government. So why are we using funds that it seems like are coming to the city of Surprise?
Yeah.
And when El Mirage has a much larger percentage of people in need, I would think that a prudent taxpayer would ask the question, why are we giving a lot of our resources to the city of El Mirage, to the people that need it in El Mirage?
That's a good question. Through the chair, Commissioner, none of the Surprise CDBG money will go to an El Mirage resident. So only our community action funds through the county are eligible for El Mirage and Surprise residents. What we're proposing is only to serve Surprise residents with CDBG money. And because of the grant last year that we received from the CDBG, $20,000, we were able to leverage that and bring in $20,000 additional dollars in the same pot from the Tohono O'odham Nation to support both communities. But our ask is to increase the level of investment in utility assistance without having to pay for more of our staff, because we're leveraging our staff with the other grant directly to Surprise residents.
I guess that was the other part of my question was, so you have one full-time staff and one part-time staff member that focuses largely or almost wholly on community assistance?
Through the chair, Commissioner, yes, largely. So they also support a full resource center, which has a number of nonprofits that now work out of that. And so I think to the value of the nonprofits, we don't have the vast number of nonprofits out here and that provide the right service that many of the residents think. We have a tremendous partnership with a lot of nonprofits. They do a lot of different services. One of the values we offer is space at no cost out of our resource center. So what we've done, because the utility assistance requests have been so high, is we've looked under every rock to figure out who else is giving utility assistance out in the region. And all utility assistance requests are funneled to CAP offices, which now ours is out of the resource center. But we've partnered with St. Vincent de Paul, for example, who was actually driving all the way downtown to serve Surprise residents. They're making them drive all the way downtown just to provide utility assistance through an agreement, and which doesn't allow them to discriminate over faith or anything. It has to be open to all public. We use and leverage their funds to expand our resources. So they pay for water utility assistance where our current CAP funds cannot. So if I have a family that comes in with a high gas and electric bill, they're going through crisis, and they still have a $400 water bill, I can't help them. But I call up our partner at St. Vincent de Paul. We come together, and sometimes we can do that. Our Salvation Army partners are the same way. They offer utility assistance, and we all now have a network where we work together and refer to each other. So whenever someone has funds, we refer them over there. And so I think our network is good, but our network just doesn't have enough money for the utility assistance piece.
Okay. So you do share staffing resources
That's correct.
with the people that also have need in the city of El Mirage. Was that correct?
So our through the chair, Commissioner, yes, we have a full-time staff person and a part-time staff person. We spend one day in El Mirage, but we take all the appointments on Mondays, and they provide us space in the El Mirage Senior Center. But it's really first come, first serve. So we don't have a certain allotment of El Mirage. We have to serve a certain number of El Mirage versus Surprise. It's almost 50-50 anyway, even though our volume is much higher. Though their poverty rate's much higher, our volume of those living in poverty is much higher because of the size of our city. And so per our county contract, we can't take 80% of their funds and only let El Mirage use 20. It's pretty equitable right now.
Okay, that answers, I think, that makes it fairly clear for me. I still don't know if I could explain it if a taxpayer, came up to me and asked me, or accused me of why did you vote to give them extra money to give El Mirage. I still don't know if I could explain it as well as you just did. I guess I would just have to refer them to you. But I felt that's something that stood out to me. So, I mean, I do understand it a little better, so thank you. And then one other quick thing. Do you have a process of determining who is actually eligible for the assistance?
Yes, sir. So through the chair, Commissioner, we have very strict guidelines for both the Community Action Program and then for the CDBG program. It's the same requirements that all the other nonprofits would have layered on their contract. So if you award them a contract, they have to serve a low-income population. It's 80% of area median income. So, and you have to prove that. So we ask for, I think it's 3 months of income statements, and that's for every person in the household. And so if you have over 18, thank you. So if you have 6 adults living there and all of them have income, we take the whole income. So there is a lot of requirements. You have to be a citizen of the United States. We have to document quite a bit of need. So we have to demonstrate, you have to demonstrate a crisis for our CAP funds. And so there are strict eligibility criteria. And to your earlier point, if I can help you answer any taxpayers, it's not 1 cent of Surprise CDBG money will be spent on an El Mirage resident. That's not allowed per our guidelines, and that's what we're not asking for that. So okay. If that helps a little bit.
Yeah, it does. Thank you. I don't have any other questions.
Thank you. Commissioner Colden.
Well, Seth and Christina, I sure appreciate everything that you guys do. And for me, this has historically been a 9-year project of mine to see really those who need our help get the help that they need. Previously, before planning and zoning would process all the CDBG funds, that was done through revitalization and quality of life. And so for our team of folks that used to do that, historically, it's been a lot of work, but also really rewarding to see different nonprofits that would provide for us support. For the last number of years, I've always been pushing, just from my individual perspective, for our city budget to always kind of put our money where our mouth is and really provide support for these services. I think it's really unfortunate that this department really needs to try to ask for more funds that I would think would be coming from council directives. I mean, I really appreciate the $65,000 that has this last time provided some money for nonprofits, but I think it falls short. So as much as I know historically, for me, we have seen applications from our city come to us. And I know my perspective is, as an applicant, I think telling the story of what it is that you all do is really important. If I had my preference, I would love to see you come back as an applicant to ask for those funds, only because that's what the process was prior to planning and zoning. So it's pretty incredible. I would really hope that there would be additional funds to support these things. I want to thank you for the tour through your facility this past week, and to see those nonprofit partners in our facilities helping people coming from a distance to serve. All of these programs are really beneficial. In addition to that, it seems every year come December or January, I get surprise phone calls, not surprise city, but calls that are unexpected. And typically they're from nonprofits that say, I had no idea CDBG funds were available. How can we find out about them? Is it something that's emailed out regularly, or how does a new nonprofit, get that information to apply? And so I know at the beginning of your presentation, you had said that you're looking for advice. From my perspective, over 8 to 9 years, whatever we can do to really blitz that information on our city's website, because I know what you guys already do is really incredible. If there's any way, I know for repeat nonprofits that have already been awarded monies from last year, as we had talked this week, they receive an email that comes out to them saying applications are available for CDBG funds for 2018. And so I just wish there was a way for all the nonprofits that are here that don't know, that provide quite a service, that could be an additional component to not only support what it is that all of you do, as incredible as it is, but also to really provide that opportunity. Our largest city's food bank hasn't come to the table. I just kind of wonder why. I don't know the answer to the question. Other nonprofits that are here in our city haven't come to the table, and yet they provide an incredible service. So that would be my feedback for all of you. And again, thanks for everything that you do, because having seen it firsthand, I really appreciate it.
Commissioner Norberg.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I have some questions. Kind of piggybacking on what Eric was saying, is there a list of the 50 or the nonprofits that we have here in the city, and maybe just find out what they are and send a letter out to each one of them? I mean, is that something that's possible?
Through the chair, Commissioner, we actually received, we had about 26 nonprofits attend our training regarding the application last year. We only had about 10 or 12 turned in because the grant tends to be kind of rigorous, and that's why they don't all always apply, because they can't meet the requirement. But that's something that we actually send out a press release. We put it on our website, and then we send it out to regular nonprofits as well as the ones that are referred to us through the SCOP application, which is the city application, when they don't receive sufficient funding there. And how many applicants did you have this last year at SCOP?
Yeah, through the chair, Commissioner, we had 32 applications from nonprofits. Most of those were from surprise nonprofits, but quite a few came from out of area to try to serve our residents. So it was great. We had a phenomenal response, and that was the problem, is we only had a little bit of money, and so then you had to prioritize who do you fund. And so we had I think the best response we've ever had this past year for our nonprofit applicants.
Okay, so going back real quick, do they receive a letter, or is it that this is available to them, or is it just the press releases or the ones that have given information before or attended the meetings?
Through the chair, Commissioner, every nonprofit in the city of Surprise does not receive a letter. It is, like I said, posted on the on the press release, and then actually there's an ad in the newspaper now that I recall, and then people call us throughout the year, and we make the mailing list for people that have already requested information, or our prior applicants, or again, our people that are referred to us through the Scott process also.
Okay. I don't know. I mean, I kind of think it would be, the city's not all that big. How many nonprofits do you think we have? I mean, if 32 applied, do we have an idea? Do we have a list or a way of getting a list of what the nonprofits are for our city?
Yes, through the chair, Commissioner, we don't have a set list. Nonprofits can come and go. Some organizations have a nonprofit without staff. So I think there's nonprofits out there. We don't have a list. We have through Commissioner Colton asked for the list of applicants for the Surprise Community Outreach Grant Program. So I think with Lorraine's help, she shared that with you earlier. It'll list the 32 that applied. Past year, we had, I think, 12 applicants for the last public service round. And so the word is getting out, and nonprofits are really good at seeking funding sources too. So I'll say we do get calls all throughout the year, and we do put out public notices and press releases. We have a newsletter now that we're starting to put out. So I think the word's getting out there. Then it's whether they apply.
Mm-hmm.
Again, to Christina's point, the CDBG funds, unless it's senior specific or low income specific, like a lot of our art programs aren't going to be eligible for CDBG, and a lot of our art nonprofits only can apply for that community outreach grant program. So it depends on their scope and their mission and what they're eligible for.
Okay. And then when we're talking about the youth program, on average, in the past, how many youth have you had that have applied, and how many have you had to turn down?
Through the chair, Commissioner, that's a great question. In the last 4 years, I would say that the applications have varied anywhere from 110 to down to about 65. So that would mean that we would turn down more than half of the people that have applied. And we continue as we market, as we go to schools, as siblings come up, into that age bracket, it gets bigger and bigger. The first couple of years we had a few hundred, but that usually had to do with, letting people understand the eligibility requirements. So now we're more between like 60 to 80, but we can only fund 20. But we do interview every one of them because we want them to have at least that experience of dressing up, going to an interview, and that process. We have also opened up in the past, if even if the student was not given a position, if they we would talk to them and offer them to come do the life skill training, because nothing would prevent them to do that portion. And we have had some take advantage of that.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you. And then when we're talking about the increase from the city from 65,000 to 100,000 for nonprofits, I don't know, I kind of look at that and I think, why not increase your budget and allow more of this to go to nonprofits?
Through the chair, Commissioner, I don't know. So they know that we want to do great work, but we have a lot of other needs in the city as well. Public safety, there's a lot of, just all of the plans that Eric's team is going through. Funding utility assistance or summer youth, it's going to be way, way down there. And we know that. And we understand that, and we want to support our city wherever their needs are. And that's why we thought coming to you and seeking direction about federal funds. What if we tap into those, and 15% of them have to go to direct service anyway, and without having to pay for more staff to get those funds out from us? We're already leveraging another grant. that'll be, every cent will go directly to that person. So there's a lot of competing interests, and I don't want to bring any other department of, we don't want to compete, but I know that priority, that funding priority is going to be very low.
Right, but maybe I didn't ask the right question. They're looking at increasing the 65,000 to 100,000 for nonprofits, not for this coming year, but for 2019, correct?
Yes, for this next fiscal year, starting
Okay.
next July.
So my question is, if they are going to increase for nonprofits, again, if they're looking at an extra 35,000, it would seem to me that it would be better off going to your department and then allowing all this funding to go to the nonprofits here. Does that make sense? Am I making sense here?
Yes, now, think through the chair, Commissioner, now I see that you're maybe recommending that money to come to either the Crisis Assistance Fund or Summer Youth Employment Program. I will say this, the Community Outreach Grant Program is much more broad, so any nonprofit could apply for that.
Okay.
And so
That's right, that makes sense, thank you.
CDBG is a little more narrow.
Right, yeah. Okay, and then I wanted to find out, just my last question here. When you're giving us this presentation, is it possible to add in next time the history, like a graph? How many people called in the last, 2, 3, 4, 5 years? And how many, what is our percentage that we are giving out? How many people are we, providing assistance for? And because I think it'd be nice to know what the increase or decrease is per year on how many calls are coming in and how many people that we're helping. So a graph, I think, would be very helpful.
Good idea.
That's my only questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Bash.
Follow up.
Sure.
Following on, I think, with what Commissioner Smith just said and Commissioner Norwood.
Is your mic on?
Excuse me. Yes, it is. My voice just isn't. Sitting here right now, I'm not in a position to make an allocation recommendation. I think that there's a lot of variables out there, and I think Commissioner Smith and Commissioner Norberg touched on those. Is there any way that you all can come back to us with public service funding sources that exist in this state that are being used? Because if you boil this all down, it is the number of people served. And I'm not sitting here saying that I'm going to give you an extra $24,000 if the best bang for the buck is with these other programs. So I don't think we're getting, personally, I don't think I'm getting from you all of the information I need to make an informed decision on making an allocation to you. Unless I see public service funding sources out there listed with the numbers of people that have been served and breaking that metric down to the dollars per individual served, because quite frankly, that's where it's at. I want to give this money to the best source that can reach the most people, and your two programs may not be that. And that speaks to Mr. Colton's response too, from the standpoint of, Eric, I had it in my mind, I can't remember what it was, but you touched upon it as well, that it may not necessarily be the best funding source. So I'm not prepared to make an allocation judgment until I see more metrics in front of me on the dollars that are out there. Did I make myself?
Yes.
I think one of the examples I could use, and we've been here a number of years and listened to the nonprofits make their presentation, and like Benevilia, which services seniors. If we give 50% to you all, do we cut them? And I don't know, what are the other requests? I think that all the requests for funding ought to come in if we're going to make allocations and base it on what we think are the best, resource, the best allocation of the money we have to serve the people. So I wouldn't want to cut out the senior center if we're going to put the funds for additional summer youth program. For me, maybe we should keep it at 20 and give the seniors a little bit, it depends on what the requests are from the nonprofits. We can't make a decision, say, well, we're going to have to cut 47,000 out of the nonprofits and make sure we take care of the utility and the summer youth program, because we don't know what they're going to come forward with. That's my comment.
And what Commissioner Smith just I just remember what it was, that you all should probably be at the table as one of those requests for funds.
Yeah.
And I think that's what Commissioner Colton brought up. So kind of wrapping all those up, I'm not ready to make an allocation. I need to see more data.
Well, and to add one more comment, again, to echo the efforts in which your department is doing what you're doing is phenomenal. Thank you again for the opportunity to see it firsthand. As I said before, had a really difficult but positive conversation with our city manager, Bob Wigenroth, just about budgetary numbers related to the upcoming budget year. And given the $65,000, I really value and appreciate our council wanting to have a subcommittee to do that process. I'm going to be interested to see who those allocations were made to this past year from the $65,000, because some or many may be repeat requests. And for me, like I hear echoed here, I just want to make sure that there's not duplicity of funds, given we've been doing this for years. So appreciate that. Thank you very much.
All right. I think we all appreciate the job you have to do. The funds that we are here to allocate are only, of course, a portion of the total grant. So the whole community is receiving the majority of the funds in one way or another, usually whether it's through infrastructure or some other kind of sites improvements and things like that, that this portion of it is more direct to the people. And I think it's a very difficult thing for us each year as we approach this. And I think throwing in the outreach program kind of confused where we're going, because are we making decisions about the outreach program?
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you include that, then it gets a little confusing for us who are more specific in line with the block grant. And I can see where you may want to come in and make a request for block grant money to go to this. And I think that should be part of the full schema of what it is. And also, I'm not sure if, I don't know if the right word is recidivism rate, but people that are on requesting assistance in utilities, for example, if they come back every year, or we've got a small number of people that we served, and do we have repeat customers? In other words, do we grant it to different people, or do we grant it by need and it may be the same people? I'm not sure how that works.
Yes, sir, Commissioner, Chair. We serve anyone. So the criteria that we have from the feds for the CAP program specifically is that you can receive service one time a year. And you still have to meet all income criteria. And what we did, because we knew this question may come up, is look at all the data to show how many people are returning. And we have about a 21% to 26% return rate. But I have to tell you, it's almost like winning the lottery. So this past November, we've set up a phone system. So because we can't do first come, first serve, a line would be wrapped around our building, and we're living in a beautiful tech accelerator, and we don't want to do that to the rest of the tenants of the tech accelerator. So we open the line every Monday morning at 8 o'clock, and you have to call in a Hope line, and you have to leave a message and explain, why you need utility assistance. And the message prompts you to leave certain information. In November alone, we had 4,000 calls. We're able to take only 90 messages, and we're able to help about 35 families. So not all those 4,000 were individuals, so there's some duplicate numbers in there. I would do the same thing. If I'm in need, I'll call a bunch of times. But our line shuts down within a matter of minutes. And that's the reality of how we, with 1.5 staff of just to focus on that particular program, that's the need coming in. And that's where We knew this was going to be a good discussion because everyone loves nonprofits. We love our nonprofits. In fact, we're only supporting them, those utility assistance customers through our nonprofits because we're helping them with domestic violence and support. Who we have nonprofits come into the center. We have employment services. We have food services. We're starting a food box program. So we look at the highest number of asks coming into us, and we roll it out by priority, and it's definitely the utility assistance. Yeah. And so we're happy to come back every year and apply, and it's been good for us to learn that there's more. You want more information, and that's good for us. We'd be happy to share that, and we'd love to give you a tour of the center to see a little bit about what we're doing there, and that's exactly what we're kind of seeking is should we come back with an application for both programs and in support and in the other nonprofits, or can we set aside, and it doesn't have to be 50%, whatever the commission and council really dictates. But we appreciate you at least listening and hearing some of our ask and our need.
Yeah, just a slight follow-up. So if you come in with an outreach program request for block grant money, that you will list specifically those areas of what you want to use those fundings for, so that if or is it all going to be in the assistance for utilities? I mean, if you would, will you list out and how much for each one of those categories if it's under an outreach program?
Yes, sir. Mr. Chair, as a city department, we are not eligible for the community outreach grant programs because that has to be a 501c3 nonprofit. Okay. We are not that. So the only source we can apply for to try to expand our programs would be this. And what we did last year and the year before, they would be two different applications. So you would have two applications from the City of Surprise Human Service Community Vitality Department, one specifically on youth and one specifically on crisis assistance. So then you can, so we're not going to lump them, and we're not going to have you have to figure that one out. So we'll bring them separate.
They'll be separate ones. Okay. Thank you very much. Are there any other questions from you?
Yes, I'd like to make sure that, Seth, if we can get that data that I requested.
Yes, sir.
I think that would be interesting for all the ones on the council to see. So I wanted to make sure that would be forthcoming.
Yes, sir. Thank you. And through the chair, I'll probably need to follow up with you on some clarification on public services is pretty broad. So if we talk CDBG public services versus others, we can talk about what data you might be looking for. We're happy to provide you all that we have. But if we need to go find other nonprofits, funder sources, I mean, that's where I can seek your direction on what you're looking for. So we can do a follow-up. Okay.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you very much for your program. Thank you. Yes. 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 Okay. All right. Okay. We at this point we have a little unusual request. We have a request for one of our community members to speak on item number 3. Knowing that number 3 has already been approved, you'd still like to speak. If you'd like to come up before us, just to let you know that.
I understand that.
Could you speak? Let us know your name, please.
Sure. My name is Don Holmes. I live at 17006 North 131st Avenue. I'm not here to oppose anything. I came for the 6 o'clock meeting and was unable to find anybody that could direct me to the door that was actually open in here. Most of the doors are closed at 5 o'clock, and so you kind of end up running around. And I'm appearing here in relation to case FS 17-482, and I understand you have already approved it, and I have no problem with the approval. The only thing I would request is that you would recommend to the development department that they contact me or other residents that are abutting the property and address the issues of both sound and light abatement. so that lights on the area, particularly security lights they have in the evening, are not shining into our houses, and that noise that is created at the facility is abated so that it doesn't necessarily interfere with our residential use.
Yeah, we might, yes, just normally we wouldn't respond to you, but I think that our city staff can help you with that. I think we address those issues during the meeting, and I think that you'll be happy with what you are going to hear. But is there someone from the staff that we could direct him to? Not necessarily right now, but maybe after the meeting. But anyway, our city staff will put you in contact with somebody in the city staff that can help answer your questions.
Great,
for you,
I
okay?
appreciate that. Thank you for your
You bet.
indulgence.
Thank you for, glad you found the place finally.
You know, when you have these meetings and you put out a notice, it would be helpful if you had just like a little placard outside, you know, one of these little V boards with some sort of an arrow directing which door to go into.
Yeah. Thank you. I understand from not coming all the time, it is hard to know where to go. Okay, thank you very much. We'll move on to item number 8. And do any commissioners have any input there? We have, I think.
Yeah, I'd like to actually ask if we could have a work session. You know, we had that joint meeting with the city council, and I'd like to have some clarification. So what I wanted to find out is if we could have a work session. I'm not sure if I talked to you about that, with the Surprise Center development project, the master planning, the history of the project, the history of the, you know, the whole piece of property, and maybe have it some kind of presentation from the property owner on all that, because I think we need to have a little bit more clarity. And I also wanted to find out about how we would work a session when we're looking at the different documents, because there's several documents pertaining to this piece of property. There's legal documents, you know, the 2035 plan, there's the settlement, there's the original land swap. If we could figure out and understand as a commission the hierarchy of how all of those work so that we're pretty much on the same page.
Chair Chapman and Commissioner Norberg, we certainly can do like a presentation for you on the history of the site, and then highlights, you know, some of the documents and some of the things that are in the documents. As far as having the property owner, you know, coming before you, we could extend the invitation. There's no guarantee that they'll accept. But I think at the very least, we can provide you the history. You're doing like a PowerPoint presentation, provide some of the documents or executive summaries of documents because they are voluminous. So we can do that, but it's going to take a little bit of time to get all together, and we have the holidays. So I think maybe sometime in late January, February would be probably appropriate time to do something like that.
Okay, and if we could, in that, have defined so that there is clarity, not just because I think all of us understand this, but maybe for the community to understand the differences between a master plan and a site plan, because a lot of people came forward talking about site plans when we were really talking about a master plan. So I think it's important to have that defined and to know what we can do as a commission to move forward on projects as everything is developing with that. Because from what I understand, what was presented is that the roads are something that has already been, like, there's discussion. Scott Phillips had talked about that being turned in at that joint meeting. And so maybe it'd be nice for us to know where we're at on that.
Okay. Yeah, because it sounds like what we could do is we could do like a team presentation for you with, you know, development staff with their pieces. and then we have also the legal components, so you understand exactly, that legal history. But it's been here over almost 20 years now, and so it is quite the history. And
It would be nice, excuse me, it would be very nice if we went through the zoning, because the zoning really
yes.
drives what the development will be. It's not a master plan, it's not a city plan.
No.
It's actually the zoning which will drive the development. And I think that should be the start of the presentation is, this is how this property is zoned. And any changes to that zoning, the developer has to approve. So we can sit and talk about what we'd like, but what it's zoned is what it'll be developed.
Okay.
That would be really nice too, to have the definition of what it means for the property owner to have 100% vested interest in zoning, because honestly, I think I understand that, but I would like to have that defined.
Okay.
That 100% of that being,
Okay, well, some of this, what you're asking is, you're asking for some legal opinions, excuse me, on some of this. So we may have to bifurcate this into a public presentation and an executive session.
Okay.
So also, just
makes sense.
for the sake of some people, is the distinguish. I want to throw in the 2035 plan here too. But the difference that we may apply or not apply a vision to this master plan. The differences that we may or may not see in terms of a vision and that of a master plan and that of, as mentioned, zoning.
Okay.
So.
Okay, so you've given us quite the task.
Hey,
I have a whole list of questions all typed out for you if I can maybe send that to you.
Okay, well, actually, I think it might be a good idea if the commission would, write up some questions and submit them to development staff, so we can kind of, go through and identify ones which are the same, and then maybe address them, as much as we can during the presentation and or the executive session.
Yeah, and I can
I'd be
see
fine to do that.
this may take up maybe more than one session or workshop. I'm not sure.
I don't know until we see the questions.
Depends how fast you can talk. All right. Well, I think that's a good point. I think the commissioners, if you have any questions that might assist, we'll send and direct those to
Lorraine or Eric.
Eric.
Okay.
Lorraine and Eric.
All right.
One more.
And they will send me mine.
Quick.
And then just the last piece for me, I'd really like the developer, property owner at the table. As much as I really enjoyed our joint meeting recently, to not have the property owner and the developer at the table was disappointing. And I really think if we want to see any future of our downtown, we have to have them at the table. Thank you.
Okay.
Chair Chapman, I just wanted to make the commission aware that I will not be at the December 21st meeting.
So excused.
We need a note, please. No.
Now, unfortunately, my father-in-law, who passed away in February, it took 11 months to get him interred in Arlington National Cemetery. So the 20th of December, we interred him in National Cemetery, and we're going out a few days earlier and staying a few days later. So that's the genesis.
Condolences.
Okay, any other comments from the commission? Seeing none, then I close or adjourn this meeting.